Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales is now streaming live on Fun Media at fun927.com and is always on Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitch, and at tv5wrestling.com.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.
Last Tuesday was not the same. Last Tuesday, we did not have a Talking Memphis Wrestling show. But guess what? We're back. Dennis King is in the house, ready for some Memphis wrestling. I'm ready as well. Calvin Lindsay Jr. is in the house. Thomas is in the house. It is a huge show. My buddy and Pat Grammel's buddy, Ahmad Rashad Jones, is in the house. And I'm going to tell you what the focus of this program is going to be here today as we are fired up and ready to go. So follow me on this, people. Pat Grammel in the backstage area, follow me. Producer Adam Dunn in his remote office, follow me. Because I'm going to tell the peoples, I love the peoples, I love Team Hales, and I'm going to tell you, I was born in 1961. So I lived through all the 60s, from 61 on, all the 70s, all the 80s, all the 90s, and the year 2000. Hey, I'm 26 years in, and the subject that we want to discuss today as we throw my evidence in, what is the best decade, because we have a question of the day is coming up, and it's the question of the day: what's your favorite decade of Memphis wrestling? Now, my favorite decade of Memphis wrestling is the 1970s. Why, Randy? Why, RH? Why is that my favorite decade? Because that's the decade in 1972. It's America's favorite sport on WHBQ television. I heard for the first time, and I saw Lance Russell and Dave Brown for the first time. As we got a lot of people in here, Lucian saying hello, my brother from another mother. Hey, everybody, says Randy West. Jeremy's in the house, and we appreciate Mike being here and everybody watching this show. Why was the 70s my favorite? First of all, it was because I discovered Lance Russell, Dave Brown, and Channel 13 Wrestling. I discovered my first favorite wrestler of all time. And that person was the fabulous Jackie Fargo. As time went on, and I got to go to the matches in my hometown of Jonesboro, Arkansas, every single Saturday night, working my way up. The 70s was my favorite. The most important thing of my start around wrestling was I built a relationship that started with Eddie Marlin. A mentorship from him, a love by me, a father figure to me. I met Eddie Marlin because of Memphis Wrestling. Starting in 72, 73, I got to see Jerry the King Lawler become the king. I got to see superstar Bill Dundee become the superstar. The 70s were great. The 70s was the biggest attendance year in the history of Memphis wrestling. Now, other decades might have had better gates because of inflation and because prices went up. But without a doubt, the 70s was my favorite, as Lucian is saying the 70s and the 80s. And Jeremy saying 80s and 90s. So we want to get that thought at you. And I wanted to tell you before we do first take time in just a minute, we will start on the 70s by telling you the big split of the 70s between Jerry Jarrett and Nick Gulas and Roy Welch. That'll be a focus of this show today. But I want to just give you a list of videos we'll show. 1975, Jackie and Roughhouse Fargo against Bill Superstar Dundee and Chris Cope. We will have Bearcat Brown and Phil Hickerson against Ron and Don Bass from 76. Jackie Fargo and Rocky Johnson against Jerry Lawler and the Mongolian Stomper. Early, maybe his first TV5 promo from Jerry Lawler. Then we go to TV5 in 1977 with Clay Conrad and Bob Young as the announcing, the worst announcers in the history of wrestling on television in Memphis. But we will see that. It's before Dave and Lance came over to Channel 5, Jerry Lawler against Rocky Johnson. We'll watch that. Also, little video from 79 with Jimmy Valiant and Tommy Rich. And Lawler, after switching babyface in 77, then going back heel in 79, that heel promo, we'll show that today. We'll get deep diving and historical and a lot of stuff. And to do that with me today, as I say hi to Frank, I say hello to James. This is, if you don't like history, this will not be the show to you. My truck driving friend, Tracy Vision, is in the house, and he's here to say hello. And I'm not okay. I'm absolutely fantastic, ready to rock and roll as the very first guy that joined me on this show. First few shows, it was me solo. And then eventually we have a pretty big panel. But the OG, the guy that started it all, the guy that clicked with me on Twitter before we did this on Facebook, before we even did video. It was a talk show with audio only. He is a big part of the success of the show, as my friend King of Kingsport, who likes wrestling history, hates. He probably doesn't like me like he doesn't like others. Bo's protective of the historian thing, man. He absolutely, even with me, he will freaking, he gets his nuts off on correcting me when I might misspoke. Bo loves that. And I get a laugh. I get a chuckle out of that. Hey, we're going to go right to somebody that never second guesses me, never tries to make me look stupid or ignorant or like a liar. He's my good friend that saved my ass many, many times, Al Pollard. And let's bring into this show, this historic show, this fun show, this exciting show, and we'll get his first take, and then he can respond to the bullshit that I opened up with. Now, here's my friend Pat Trammell going full speed.
Well, you've been all over the place tonight, RH. I'm not quite sure where to start, but we talked a good bit this afternoon, and I've been thinking and doing some research. And Bo, I should have called you to get your input on some of this stuff. But you know, the thing that I went back to, and I went back and looked at some of Cornette's stuff about kind of the split, and you know, as an NWA territory, which Memphis Wrestling became before subsequently going to AWA and then on its own. You know, the thing that Jerry Jarrett was able to do was something that really I don't know if anybody else did, was able to split one NWA territory in two. And particularly it's interesting because of the territory he did split. You know, the Welches were absolutely there at the birth of the NWA. And I think at the time, Nick had taken over to some extent the NWA role for the Gulas Welch territory. But just the fact that Jerry Jarrett was able to go to, I guess it was Eddie Graham had a lot to do with that. Obviously, he would have to go to Sam Mushnick. I'm not exactly sure who else was involved in allowing him to split that territory and giving him NWA membership. But I've been since Randy we talked. I've been on my laptop all afternoon doing research and everything else, and it's fascinating. But as you and I talk today, the wrestling in both cities, and we were talking Birmingham and Memphis, not necessarily Nashville, but Nashville was obviously as affected as Birmingham. I was just in Birmingham because the hottest draw in the territory in Memphis, in Birmingham, in Chattanooga, in Nashville was Lawler, and all of a sudden he's gone. So what do you do? That's interesting. And say hello to everybody. I'm happy to be here with you all, and look forward to being guided by our fearless leader here through these times.
Pat, that was basically a little additional information from the opening that I just did. But do you have a first take?
Uh, no, I don't think that's my first take. Just excited for the show.
Okay, and we'll do a question that just came in right now, and that question is from Richard Hood. Whose idea was it to switch from Channel 13 to Channel 5? And so that is a part of the story. So, people, buckle up your seatbelt. Pat, make sure you buckle it up because this is a wild ride in the 60s as Memphis was already established. And for decades, Nick Gulas and Roy Welch, and in Memphis, obviously, Bert Bates was the local person promoting matches because I had to have somebody in Memphis with part of a promoter's license. It was a big type of mess. But Jerry Jarrett was a booker, started booking the Memphis in the late 60s. As the territory grew, Jerry Jarrett got to work and he ended up getting Louisville, Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, Evansville, had the spot shows and some regular towns like Tupelo, Mississippi, Jackson, Tennessee, Jonesboro, Arkansas. So he was booking the Memphis Inn, and of the two inns, the Memphis Inn and the Nashville Inn, the Memphis Inn was Memphis on Mondays, Louisville on Tuesdays, Evansville on Wednesdays, Lexington on Thursdays. On Fridays, this is before the split, on Fridays was Tupelo, Mississippi or Blytheville, Arkansas. And on Saturday was Memphis TV from the late 50s to 1977 was at WHBQ Television Channel 13, at the time the ABC affiliate in Memphis. So that was what was going on. Now, the Nashville Inn that we called it was Nashville, Birmingham. Birmingham ran every Monday night. Same night Memphis ran at the Mid-South Coliseum. Nick's main town most of the time was Birmingham. I guess Chattanooga and Nashville would switch up, and sometimes they might even surpass Birmingham. Huntsville, Alabama, and that part of the area, that was Nick's Inn, and Jarrett's Inn was what I talked about that would end up Jarrett's core territory. So does everybody understand that? As far as the Memphis Inn, it was Memphis, Louisville, Evansville, and Lexington, Jonesboro and Tupelo, and spot shows. Now, next main towns was Nashville, Birmingham, Chattanooga, Huntsville, and there was hundreds of towns for spot shows. Now, somebody asked whose idea was it to go to Channel 13 and Channel 5. Well, what happened was Jerry Jarrett thought, by the way, Frank, I not like you like my fact that I'm wearing Arkansas State T-shirt. It's T-shirt time. Stormy days in Jonesboro today. So this is what happened. Jerry Jarrett into the territory was making the most money, was selling out. Nick Goulas, though, wanted Jerry Jarrett to book somebody that Jerry Jarrett didn't want to book and didn't book. And so Nick says, "Hey, I'm the boss. You'll book whoever in the F I want you to book." And Jerry said, "Hey, I bought a percentage of this company. I'm an owner too." Said, "So I can." And Nick says, "You didn't buy any of this company, even though Jarrett had spent a lot of money, wrote the check, sent the money. But all he bought was an option to buy." So he got screwed. So Jerry Jarrett resigned. And when he resigned, Jerry Lawler stayed. The entire crew stayed. Lawler was probably a front guy, and Eddie Marlin a front guy. Jerry Jarrett behind the scenes was booking for several weeks. Finally, Jarrett went away, made his plan, and made the announcement that he was taking over. However, they went to Channel 13 and say, "Hey, I'm going to take over, blah, blah, blah." Channel 13, RKO General was the parent company. They were afraid of that. They thought Nick would sue. They didn't want anything to do with it. So they canceled wrestling altogether. So, particular week, they had wrestling, and then all of a sudden, they didn't have wrestling. And the next week, on the stronger station in Memphis, TV5, it started. Now, it went from 11 o'clock in the morning to a new time period of 11:30 in the morning on Saturdays at TV5. That just lasted a few weeks, and it went back to the traditional time that Power Pro had as well. Plus, the pre stuff that we saw for many years, even at Channel 13, was at 11 o'clock. But so that meant that Jerry Jarrett was going into his first Memphis card with television on a Saturday morning. As a matter of fact, he was running because he couldn't get Mid-South Coliseum. He was going to run at the Cook Convention Center on Sunday night. So his television show that was going to be on a Saturday night, his television show debuted the 19th. Now, on the 20th, he debuted at Cook Convention Center, March the 20th, 1977. Now, Nick Goulas totally lost television. No television whatsoever. I think he did Pat newspaper ads, but he had no television. His debut show at the Mid-South Coliseum was March the 21st of 1977. It's very detailed, but I want everybody to know the territory. So all of a sudden, wrestling debuted on a new station on the 19th of March on Channel 5 after 30 years of being at Channel 13. The very next day, it debuted in a new building on a new night, the 20th. And then on the 21st, Nick came back with no television with his card on March the 21st, 1977. So I usually that that don't we don't go in detail that much. We don't want to bore everybody to death. But I think, and hey, PJ, good to have you here for sure. Pat, I don't like to bog down on details, but I knew going in today that this needed to be a historic show backed by conversation and video. That was a lot of information. So out of hearing that, add whatever you want to add, ask questions about whatever didn't make sense. And was that too much too soon? Did you get the idea I was selling?
I did, and I think one of the things that's you and I are a gentleman of a certain age, if you will, but some of our early younger listeners, you know, the purpose of TV was to sell the live show. I mean, you know, in Birmingham, it would be, you know, every fifth word would be Monday night at the Boutwell Auditorium. See this, see this, see this. The same thing with Memphis. Now, I have a question. My understanding is that Jerry, part of him being able to get, and it may not have happened at the right at the time where he left, get TV5 for wrestling was he was going to bring Lance with him. Is that true?
Now, first of all, in the wash, it was determined because Lance was a employee of Channel 13.
That's correct. He was
He
the
couldn't
program
jump right.
manager.
He couldn't, yeah, program director. He couldn't jump right over. But that was certainly the plan. Now, the initial meeting with Channel 5, Jerry Jarrett didn't even go because nobody knew. Jerry Jarrett was very rarely on Channel 13 Wrestling, except when he was, it was earlier when he was a wrestler. So the public face of Memphis Wrestling was Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler went to Channel 5 and pitched, said, hey, we're leaving Channel 13. We're looking for a different TV station. And he might have thrown the fact, hey, we can get all the wrestlers that wrestle for us. I'll be here. And we can also get Lance Russell and try to get Dave Brown. As Adam Dunn wants to add to this, and so we will let him add to this. So Adam,
Absolutely.
No. So can you hear me? I think I've got the camera working now.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Deal.
It's convenient. By God, 100 times I ask you to be on camera, but unless you want to, but all of a sudden when you want to speak, then the camera works. So I'm a wrestling business guy. Don't you know you can't work me, Adam? We all know that, but go ahead and tell us what you want to say.
Yeah, so I just in talking about the history of this, I think it's always interesting to kind of point out. So, and I was actually talking to somebody about this earlier today. So, wrestling in Memphis actually did start originally on Channel 5. And this was before Channel 5 was at 1960 Union. This is when Channel 5 was downtown in the Goodwin Institute building. On Monday nights, they would string cable across from that building over to the Ellis Auditorium, and they would air the last bit of the Monday Night Wrestling card live. And that was actually hosted by Dick Hawley during that time. Then wrestling, like you said, Randy, went to Channel 13. I want to say, I don't remember the exact number of years, but I want to say it was at 13 for maybe 16, 18 years, something like that. And Lance Russell, like you said, was program director. And when wrestling first went on WHBQ, it was not on Saturday morning. But then Lance made the call to move it to Saturday morning. And as you said, Lance being program director, not only was he responsible for that move and for championship wrestling, but Lance was also responsible for Bill Dance getting his show. I believe he was responsible for George Klein and Talent Party and a lot of stuff that happened on 13 in the earlier years. He was responsible for getting Dave from being just a staff announcer in radio on to doing the wrestling show, on to doing Dialing for Dollars, and then on to doing the weather. As you mentioned, yes, so after Nick and Jarrett had the split, and RKO Television at a corporate level decided to just cancel wrestling because, like you said, they were afraid of Nick suing or something like that. The RKO management had no idea the power and the ratings of that local Memphis wrestling show. Probably the biggest mistake ever made by a TV station was just to cancel that show.
Now let me jump in. Jump in. Now, thank God they did.
Yes.
Thank God Jerry Jarrett got
Yep.
Channel 5, because if Jerry Jarrett wouldn't got 5, the contract was with Nick.
Yes.
So Nick would have got TV and Jarrett would have been out. Now, Nick, of course,
Right.
would have used Lawler for sure, obviously, but still, so you have to throw that in, and that's something we don't think about. That if they wouldn't, if Channel 13 would have said, "Hey, we're just going to go with Nick," then either Jarrett got Channel 5, would get Channel 5, or would not. If I think Lawler would have followed Jarrett to Channel 5, even if Nick had Channel 13. But there's a lot of what ifs here.
Yeah.
What if this happened or didn't happen? It's just fascinating to me, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, so since RKO canceled that, and again, you have to remember, like you said, Lance was a employee of RKO General, as was Dave, and Lance was the program director of WHBQ Television. So for that to be canceled, and then like you said, Jarrett didn't think anybody would know who he was at Channel 5, so they sent Lawler over to Channel 5, and he requested a meeting. And keep me honest on the names. I believe it was Phil Slavic was the may have been one of them, and
he was the program director,
and Maury Griner
was the GM.
That's who he requested to. I think he may have he requested one, then the other came in the room, and so of course they knew who Lawler was. And so Lawler pitched them the thing of, hey, as you know, we do wrestling over on HBQ, and they've just canceled that show. The promoters have gone their separate ways, and the promoter that I'm working with, Jerry Jarrett, he wants to see if you guys would be interested in having a studio wrestling show here, which of course they were very interested in doing that. They knew the ratings of that. At this time, the only person doing weather was Dick Hawley was doing double duty. He was doing news and weather. So 5 was in the market for a weather person. And I believe that they did state that Lance was going to come over, that Jarrett was going to offer him a full-time position with the Jarrett Wrestling Company. And in addition to announcing, Lance was going to handle, the syndication and the other stuff that Lance did. The story, and we all know how a good wrestling story goes, but the story is, yes, that they did say that they would also get, because they talked about announcers, and they said they would get Lance, and that they thought that they could get Dave to come along too. So that sealed the deal there. Apparently Dave was unaware of that at the time.
Yes.
And Dave found out later that they said he was going to go over there. So, and just to put a bow on this, so yes, they did move to Channel 5, did live wrestling at Channel 5 on Saturday morning. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, I believe was Clay Conrad an employee of WMC TV?
Clay Conrad was, and his announcing partner for a few weeks, Bob Young, was as well.
Yeah, so Bob Young and Clay Conrad were WMC employees, so they served as announcers. Lance had to resign from RKO and work that out. And that's why I believe Lance came first, because Lance was never an employee of WMC. However, Dave had to work out salary and the contract and everything to go from RKO to WMC. So going from RKO to Scripps Howard. So Dave, I'm sure, had to negotiate money and things like that. So that's why it took Dave a couple extra weeks to come over. There may have been, I think timeline wise, I doubt there was really any non-compete or anything like that. I think it was really just Dave getting his contract worked out and getting the provision in there that he could work for Channel 5 and work for the wrestling company. And I believe that's also where you got the little, it was, I don't remember who did it in the beginning years, but in the later years, you got the little Dick Hawley thing at the end of the show talking about the announcers being paid by parties other than the station. So I think that was part of getting that all in there as well. But yeah, I just wanted to jump in on that because that's always been a super interesting, fascinating part to me about how wrestling really went from 5 to 13, back to 5. And I don't think it was exactly during this time, Randy, but at some point, Nick did get TV on WPTY, Channel 24, when Channel 24 first launched. And I don't remember what year that was. And it was very, very short-lived.
And we didn't get Channel 24 in Jonesboro, because the first I ever heard about it is when you told me.
Yeah, because 24 was a very low-power station when it first came on. Yeah, and I believe when it signed on, it was 20. It was WPTY. 30 is the one that changed call letters. But yeah, so it was. We showed the video on here years ago, and I've never seen it again. But it's Nick and somebody sitting at a table, and Nick is talking, and he's talking about being on Channel 24, which was an independent UHF at that time in Memphis. So I think that was Nick's one and only attempt of trying to get Memphis television after losing Channel 13.
Adam, was it Lynn?
I'm sorry?
Was it Lynn Rossi?
I don't think so. It could have been. I don't think so. Like I said, we showed the video on here one time. I cannot find it. I've looked for it multiple times since then, but it was Nick, and he was talking about WPTY being on the station, and it was right when WPTY went on the air, which would have been late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
Now, Adam, before you go away, and feel free to jump back in if something we talk about, you can clarify. Pat, anything else for Adam? Because between my opening and Adam's
We're 30 minutes in.
monologue there, and
Well, this is all great stuff, though. I mean, we can do this for months. This is good stuff. No, but I don't have anything else right now.
all right,
Thank
so
you, Adam.
stick with us, Adam, and if we say something interesting, we're fixing to talk about wrestling for a minute, not TV wise, but so you probably won't. Adam won't give a shit about this next segment.
The camera's going to stop working.
Do what?
I said the camera's going to stop working.
And once we start talking TV again, then
It'll start working again.
it will start working again. You didn't think you really fall for that, dude. The many times you told me, "Oh, cameras up," you didn't think I was falling for that, do you? Because I told Pat, I said he gives me a lot of bullshit every
Yes,
time.
so James Davis just said it was George Goulas and Bearcat Brown. I almost want to say that maybe that was right. So James, have you seen that video? Do you know what I'm talking about? It being on Channel 24. I don't know if it must not been on YouTube. Somebody must have shared it on Facebook or Twitch or Twitter or something.
James, if you have that video, email it because we have it in the caption. Adam, put my email up there on the screen. If you have a link to that video, Adam will be forever in debt to you and love it. Email it to me and I'll email it to him.
Things like, I know I'm not crazy. I know Nick did 24 at one time.
Do what?
I'm just saying, like, I know I'm not crazy. Nick was on 24 at one time.
Oh, I remember showing the video, and I don't know why neither one of us had enough sense
to say
historical. I don't know why either one of us had didn't have the sense to do that. He will try to find it and write my email. Damn, Barry Hay hadn't watched in a long time. Barry, we need to get with my nephew-in-law. You need to eat.
Maybe we should take a week off every now and then. We got a lot of people joining us back here this week.
There you go.
And we do have a question of the day, and we won't throughout the show get everybody's answer for this. I grew up, again, got hooked on Memphis Wrestling. My favorite decade of Memphis Wrestling is 1970. Adam, you answer that question for yourself.
Of course, for me, because it would be my era, my favorite decade was the 90s, which is probably everyone's least favorite, but it was my favorite.
Well, my booking run, 94, 95, 96, means a lot to me for sure. Pat, Memphis Wrestling in general, including both ends of the territory, your favorite decade?
You know, I mean, I think your favorite decade's when you first fall in love with it. For me, it was the mid '70s to, you know, as it till it cleared out in Birmingham, and then I swapped to, you know, I've told the story many times. I had access to a lot of different wrestling shows, but you know, I mean, you know, you fall in love with it when you're a kid, and it sticks with you. Richard, to answer your question, it wasn't Memphis, but it was Memphis, Birmingham, Chattanooga, and Atlanta. My favorite wrestler was Tojo in the Goulas territory, even when he was a heel and my daddy hated him.
Thomas is saying late 70s and early 80s. Now, real quick, and we'll get you guys back on, but I want to go from with some information about the week of the split. So we can go me and you guys be on standby, and I'll throw some information at you right now as we talk about wrestling went from Channel 13. The last show at Channel 13 was March the 13th. Then, or March the 12th, March the 12th. Then on March the 19th, all of a sudden, it wasn't there. And it was on WMC TV. And that was on the 19th of March on TV5 Wrestling, hosted by Clay Conrad and Bob Young, the worst announcers in the history of Memphis Wrestling. That didn't last long at all. Lance came back. And then when Dave came back, Clay, we never saw again. But Jarrett did that TV on the 19th, and he had a show the next day at Cook Convention Center, the Memphis Cook Convention Center, on the right off the I-40 bridge. Now it's close to the Pyramid and Bass Pro Shop, but it's right across from that. And I want to quickly bring Pat back on because Pat, certainly you have some sort of relationship in a weird way with Cook Convention Center because your full-time gig tied it all together. Why am I talking about you when I'm trying to talk about Cook Convention Center?
Because the Cook Convention Center is the Renaissance Convention Center today. And if you're coming across the river, you can see the Renaissance Convention Center sign, which is a bank that I run a business unit for. And anyway, that's how you can do it. So
good.
The bank is the title sponsor of the Cook Convention Center, and I think we paid $500,000 for that for a 10-year deal.
Oh my goodness. Richard has a question and it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. This is out of left field, but he's saying, what year did Thunderbolt Patterson show up in Memphis? It was 1978 or 1979, and he wasn't here long as well. So we've told you about that TV, the 19th. Now we will talk about the two cards.
All right, Randy, I want to clarify something, please.
Okay.
So Jarrett ran TV, his first TV, on a brand new TV station on March 19th.
Yes.
And without building anything, he did one show and said, "Here is the card tomorrow night at the Cook Convention Center, not the Memphis Coliseum. You be there."
Different night, different building. He did do a newspaper ad, and he did have the wrestling show that was, like you said, a new show. And I want to read you that card at a new building on a different day, Sunday, March the 21st, 1977. The opening match of the night was Dr. Frank, Private Diamond, and the Mummy against Rick and Robert Gibson and Jerry Bryant. The next match that will be interesting to you, Pat, Mr. Wrestling 2, Johnny Walker against Pork Chop Cash. The next match was Gorgeous George Jr., George Wagner, and Tommy Gilbert against Phil Hickerson and Dennis Condrey. The next match was Tommy Rich and Bill Dundee against the Von Steigers, David Schultz and Dutch Mantell against Ryan and Robert Fuller, Plowboy Frazier against Rocky Johnson, and the main event was a stretcher match that was Lawler's last program on Channel 13. So Jarrett was all of a sudden, even though they were going with Lawler and Bob at the Coliseum, then all of a sudden Bob and Lawler both followed Jarrett. So they had their main event. So the main event was a stretcher match and an angle program deal. It was brilliant. It was Lawler against Bob Armstrong. And in a different building, it did over 8,000 people at the Cook Convention Center.
Well, I mean, what would the Cook Convention Center hold? It wouldn't hold much more than that.
What they did, the building was divided up with walls and different things, and they had different rooms. They could do smaller rooms. If you take down all the walls, that building was you could get around 8,000 people. So basically, they had a sellout.
They had a sellout.
They basically had a sellout.
You know what's surprising to me on that card? That he had the Fullers on that card, and they came right over when they're Welch's.
Because Nick Goulas, remember, Roy wasn't really involved by that time. He was older and wouldn't live much longer. And Nick wasn't the most popular person in the world during that same period. And starting in 75, Jarrett was booking Memphis, and he used Ron and Robert Fuller a lot, would bring them in a lot and push both of them. In 75, Ron got a long run with the Southern Heavyweight Championship. That is the 20th card at the Cook Convention Center, did over 8,000 people. Now, the next night, listen to this card, then you can talk about both. And Adam, if you want to jump in. The next night at the Mid-South Coliseum on a Monday night with no television, did 1,964 people. Listen to this card. Tony Marino against Leon Chandler. The second match was Cora Combs against Lady Satan. It was that match. And the next match was the Bounty Hunters against Thundercloud and Danny Little Bear. The semifinal match was the Crimson Terrors, who I'd never heard of, against George Goulas and Tojo Yamamoto. And the main event was Bobo Brazil against the Sheik. I think it's amazing it drew 1,964 people, but with the rent of the Coliseum, that was a major money loss. And I guarantee you, Jerry Jarrett at the Cook Convention Center made a lot of money. So I read both cards. Now your comments on those cards.
You know, those Crimson Mask guys, I forgot who they were, but they were two underneath guys, and he would pull those out in Birmingham every now and then. You know, I had it written down. I mean, I would have thought that he would have been able to pull. Well, of course, it happened fairly quickly, but you know, you figured he would have been able to pull some better talent than that.
What surprises me, no Fargo. No Fargo. And obviously, looking at that card, as I will switch to Tony Marino was a Sheik guy. Leon Chandler was a Sheik guy.
Yeah.
The Bobo Brazil was a Sheik guy, and the Sheik was a Sheik guy. Now, Sheik had drawn money with Jerry Lawler in Memphis, and Bobo Brazil did too. And so both Bobo and the Sheik had drawn money against Lawler, but the people in Detroit would have paid to see Bobo against the Sheik. Obviously, in Memphis on March 21st, just 1,900 plus people paid to see that main event. Of the two cards, which one would you have been there for?
Well, I mean, that's very clear. But, you know, you and I were talking earlier. For some reason, Nick and the Sheik were close.
Yes.
And they swapped talent a lot. I mean, they would, and he would come in and wrestle in Birmingham probably 4 or 5 times a year. And I guess that's who he called first.
Now, I'm going to throw some figures at you. Now, 1964, the first week that Nick had. The second week, it dropped to 1,500 people. The third week, it dropped to 1,100 people. Then he decided April the 11th, 18th, and 25th not to do shows. Then he did a show on May the 2nd. They did 14, and May the 9th with Jackie Fargo in the main event. he did 484 people at the Mid-South Coliseum
Holy smokes.
building, and that was the night that Nick Goulas pulled out of the Mid-South Coliseum. Can you tell why? Probably in that year, in the year prior, Memphis probably averaged 9,500 people.
I'm gonna get a T-shirt made that say I outdrew Nick Goulas booking. Wow. What? And he had on May. All right, to be clear, on May 9th he had Fargo on that card. Do we know?
Yes, and it drew 464 people.
Jackie Fargo drew 484 people in Memphis, Tennessee.
With
Wow.
no television. With no television. Now, King of Kingsport, wasn't Buddy Fuller involved with Jarrett too after the split? Not publicly for a couple of months. It started out as Jarrett Wrestling Promotions or Jarrett Wrestling Promotions or Jarrett Wrestling Company, actually. And then, Bo, to answer your question, within the first month, then it changed to Jarrett Welch Wrestling Company. So that's how it went there. Pat.
What I read and what I was told by Jerry.
Hey, hold on just a second, Pat. This is a little thing. Hold that thought because Adam, I got to have something to drink. I want you to go first full screen with Pat for his comment, and then watch for me when I'm coming back. Put me back on. I got to get something to drink bad.
What Jerry told me, and I think it's in his book, was that when he went to Eddie Graham and said, "Look, I've got to do this, and I, what do you think?" Because Jerry and Eddie were close, and I think Jerry had done some work for Jim Barnett in Atlanta, and also, he was known. I think Eddie told him, you need to bring somebody in who's a known quantity to kind of make this right with the Sam Mushnicks and the older guys. And he suggested he bring Buddy in. And Buddy, I think Buddy had a 5 or 10% stake in it for a period of time. I know that later Buddy was going to run some towns, and apparently he and Jerry got sideways because Buddy was salting the house and saying, "Oh, we just didn't get any people there," but he was. So Jerry sent Dundee up there to see what was going on, and anyway, that was the end of that thing. Richard, to answer your question, the bout would hold about 5,500, 6 on a good night.
Now, also, Bo brought up Buddy Fuller. Here's the thing. After Buddy Fuller died, his widow and Ron Fuller sued Jerry Jarrett, saying they embezzled money or didn't pay what Buddy Fuller was due. And so Jerry Jarrett had to eventually write a big check to the widow of Buddy Fuller. That happened.
I did not know that.
Because you just got the Jerry Jarrett side.
Well,
we argue about that a lot. Because you always assume, and I think you know now, but I think you always assume that anything Jerry told you is the truth, and that's not the truth. Hell, you can't believe everything I tell you. I'm a damn wrestling promoter. What the hell are you talking about, boy? You can't believe everything Nick Goulas tells you. You just can't. And so that's clarified there. Now, I thought this would be interesting to do. In the picture section, Adam, I want you in the picture section, I want you to go with the next to last picture. The next to last picture. So, Pat, this is in April. This is in April, and it was April the 22nd of 1977. And this, Jarrett was able to sneak in a Mid-South Coliseum card a couple of weeks before Nick went away. He got back in the Mid-South Coliseum on with a huge card at the Mid-South Coliseum. The television before this on Saturday was the return of Lance Russell. The return of Lance Russell. And I just wanted to read you this card that drew 8,700 people. And remember, Pat, pay attention to this. You're a money guy. This was 1977.
I'm looking exactly what you're about to talk about.
We'll talk about it. The
Well,
tickets.
the ticket prices are for the time WrestleMania ticket prices.
What would $25 be for Golden Circle front row tickets? What would $25 be, Wonder, in today's money? Do you think $100, $200?
Let me see. I'll ask that woman.
As you do that, I will read the card on April 24th at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. Gorgeous George, Robert, Gorgeous George, Robert and Rick Gibson against Pat McGinnis, Ken Dillinger, and Jim Dalton. Paul Orndorff against the Gladiator. Ron and Robert Fuller against the Executioner. Then a Southeastern Tag Team title match, Tommy Rich and Bill Dundee against Porkchop Cash and Norvell Austin. Then an NWA Tag Team title match, Mike Graham and Kevin Sullivan from Florida against David Schultz and Bob Orton Jr. Then a Southern Tag Team Championship match, Phil Hickerson and Dennis Condrey versus Dusty Rhodes and Tommy Gilbert. Dusty hot off of WTBS, the Superstation television. Then a Southern title match, Jerry Lawler against former world champion Jack Briscoe. And the final match on this Sunday, where tickets were $3, $5, $6, $10, and $25, Rocky Johnson against Harley Race. Again, with that, 8,700 people at those ticket prices, probably at the time the biggest money gate in the history of Memphis wrestling, without a doubt. And it was just absolutely unbelievable. By the way, Adam, clarifying, maybe my mind's just not good. I really don't know what you mean by 136 period.
$136.
100. Okay, I forgot what I even asked. $136. So that's big for a wrestling thing, and we'll lose that graphic and just that comment on that card. And there was a lot of help from Eddie Graham on that card, without a doubt.
Yeah, you can see that. You can sure see that.
Unbelievable card. And then to show you, Pat, I thought you'd be interested with this. And Bo and I was going back and forth on this today. Adam, the very last graphic in the picture section. This happened a week later, 49 years ago yesterday was this event. This is the first sellout of wrestling at the Civic Auditorium. This is the working relationship between Ron Fuller's Southeastern Wrestling and Jerry Jarrett's Memphis Wrestling. You see that ad for, to this day, broke the record in the Knoxville Civic Coliseum. They broke, certainly it was a money record at the time that has been broken, but this card is Bob Orton Jr. against Dick Steinberg, Rick Smith against Norvell Austin in Knoxville. Certainly, Bob Orton Jr. and Dick Steinberg, what a hell of a match. Then Bill Dundee and Tommy Rich had won the Southeastern Tag Team Championship the week before in Memphis against Curtin Von Steiger and Carl Von Steiger. So they won the titles back in Knoxville. Then the next match was Jerry Lawler defending the Southern title against Bob Armstrong. That night, Bob Armstrong beat Jerry Lawler. The next match for the Southeastern Championship, Mongolian Stomper against Robert Fuller. World Junior title, Nelson Royal against Jimmy Golden. Nelson Royal, the champion. And the main event, Harley Race, the champion, against Ron Fuller. And that was 49 years ago, as we lose the graphic and get Pat's comments from those parts.
I'll tell you what. The truth is, I think Ron Fuller can put together a card about as well as anybody I've ever seen. And he posts a lot of them on social media, and we kind of communicate back and forth on that. But he puts together some fantastic cards.
Agreed, absolutely. Yeah. But that damn Jerry Jarrett card.
Yeah, that wasn't bad either.
That was better.
That's pretty good card there too.
Hey, it's a thing. For the most part, I'll let other people knock Jerry Jarrett, and sometimes I will too. But who's the first to defend Jerry Jarrett? Me.
Yeah, that's right.
Because he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. Pat, are you enjoying this look? Are you fascinated about this look? Fascinating look about the promotion war in 1977. This wasn't a work promotion war. This is a real thing. Are you fascinated?
I am. I'm a lover of history, so this is right up my alley. And I've heard enough of the scuttlebutt from Jerry before he passed away, and you and Michael, and Michael has a unique perspective because he worked so closely with Nick so many years. But hey, Gail,
we're going to jump all over the place, and we are at the first video. We're almost an hour into this show, so we're not going to get everything in tonight. Pat, you caught it at the beginning. This will be a several-part series. Do you agree?
Well, you don't want to rush this. This is good stuff here.
We are going to go back to 1975. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, Bo's got an interesting fact about that card. They did over a sellout, standing room only on that card. 7,200 people in Knoxville.
Yeah, Bo did some research about that because he said that he had it, but he didn't know what he did with it. But he found it, and Bo, I appreciate you doing that. Now, Adam, I want you to look in the video, and they're all out of order, and this is not going to be easy, but I don't even know what it's labeled, but look for a time of 9 minutes, 23 seconds, 9 minutes, 23 seconds. And when you find that, and this involves, I think, the fabulous Jackie Fargo and Roughhouse Fargo in action, we will see, and let's see if Adam can find this 9 minutes.
As the fabulous Fargos, Jackie and Roughhouse, come walking into a jam-packed 11,500 people in the Coliseum, and there's the Roughhouse. He's on the floor.
Let's go full screen.
William Colt, the valet, preceding his brother, and he almost got run over. Rough nails Colt down on the floor. Dundee in and out of the ring. And as usual, when Roughhouse is around, it's pandemonium. Jackie trying to slow him down. Referee Paul Morton tells Jackie he better get him back up in that ring.
Hey, Crazy Gale.
The bell hadn't sounded is one thing that saved him at this point.
Pat, what do you think about the enthusiasm level and the reaction from the people?
Dundee is draped over the table.
The crowd.
For Roughhouse. Completely unorthodox, wild, and woolly type feller. I want to tell you.
I think Pat went away.
Jackie gets him with a tackle. nails him from behind and slows him down in the center of the ring. We hadn't even really started it yet, and old Roughhouse has already run him out of the ring 4 times.
Adam, I know you didn't watch WrestleMania, but I can promise you, Adam, I can promise you that WrestleMania that drew 50,000 people wasn't as loud as this, probably 9,000 people. This enthusiasm from these people are amazing.
And get them back in the ring, or disqualify him and get it all over with right now. Jackie is holding Roughhouse back in the corner.
Look at that crowd, Pat.
I'll tell you.
Never claimed to be much strong on that scientific wrestling, but boy, I'll tell you, that Roughhouse will stir it up like a tornado. And referee Paul Morton cautiously caught him to the ring. He didn't want to get caught in a wild and woolly swing. There's the introductions from down at ringside as Roughhouse gets loose and comes after Bill Dundee. When Roughhouse is in the ring, you don't.
Roughhouse was a mess, Pat.
Up there and do your
You know, they would when Fargo had to have some reinforcements in Birmingham, they would bring Roughhouse in.
Referee Paul Morton kind of trapped in the corner. Jack's not doing anything. He's just leaning against him.
Hey, you know, this is before the days where every spot was figured out. With Roughhouse Fargo and with Jackie too, with everybody. You never knew what was going to come next. As Bo James says, Chris Cole was a great heel, just out of his mind. William Cole became flying Billy Anderson, a great journeyman wrestler. Good comments from Bo James.
Roughhouse took off after him. Yeah. One of the less inhibited.
Now, Roughhouse Fargo, Pat, do you think it would have worked if he was on the card 52 weeks out of the year? Because I don't.
I don't think so either.
Wrestler correctly in there because Ruff is really a brawler.
Is he the one that refereed?
Sonny Fargo in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling in the Carolinas.
Yeah.
In this one fall 60-minute time limit tag match.
Oh, Roughhouse talking to the audience.
Nelson as Dundee jumped into him. Fargo jumped out of the way. He flipped Colt straight over to Dundee as he was falling back down because he had grabbed him right up around the neck. And Jackie moved out of the way, and now William Colt, the valet, brother of Chris Colt, comes over and has a word to say to Dundee. And Roughhouse has them scattered in every direction.
Okay, who's the babyface here?
Including the referee. Referee Paul Morris says...
The babyfaces in this match?
Yeah.
Back up.
Jackie and Roughhouse.
Okay.
This is before October of '75 when they switched Dundee babyface. And as far as I know, Chris Colt was never. And that chair shot from Dundee didn't look too good. And, just exciting. This is what Ole Anderson would have called Tennessee bullshit wrestling.
And he turned it about all right.
But look at that crowd, Pat.
Pretty good idea, so he's going to bring a chair into the ring with him. Ooh, yes. The Roughhouse horse collared him with it that time. Cold out of the ring and down on the floor. We're having a little trade about here. Roughhouse giving each one of them a shot at him with a chair. Then he turns around and returns it in kind. Dundee, a backdrop as Fargo takes him over.
Referee Paul Morton,
Fargo, along with William Colt outside
the father of good old Paul, good old Ricky Morton, Paul Morton. Paulie, the referee, as Bo James says, Roughhouse had a couple of good single runs as a heel in the Kingsport territory. Whitey Caldwell and Ron Wright, I would guess, in the 1960s. But that might have been before Ron and Whitey got the territory. I'm not sure on that.
Colt and Dundee. Uh-oh. That could be it. Yep. Roughhouse hits referee Paul Martin, and he may be in a little trouble over that. Into the corner goes Dundee. Really
That's good. That's good.
The ring. And William Colt put up on the top rope, and Roughhouse, just to finish things off, since he's already been disqualified, he nails the valet, William Colt. And he goes over to tangle with Chris, and now Dundee racked up in the corner on top of Chris Colt. Roughhouse holds him in there. Jumps aboard. Wild and woolly, uninhibited Roughhouse Fargo. He's helping Dundee and Colt down, but not for the purpose of being friendly, I can assure you. Ooh. Roughhouse back down on the floor. He kind of likes that striped coat that William has on with the coat that William Colt has on. They've already been disqualified. I guess Roughhouse figures, well, you know. Ruff going visited all the way out in the crowd. Colt decides to find his way back up to his brother in Dundee. And they win the match on a disqualification. Crowd objecting to it. Sentimentality that they have for the.
But you know, I don't think I have any video of Run Right on this.
Who has never been known to one to follow all the rules. Flagrantly violated.
I love Run Right, by the way.
Hit the referee. And now we got kind of a chasing match outside the ring.
And this afterbirth, the match might not have taken long, but the afterbirth was as exciting as it can be. And I bet Roughhouse is not done yet. Look at that crowd at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. Obviously a sellout. Not a seat empty in the house. And that, my friend, is why the 70s was my favorite decade in Memphis wrestling, without a doubt in the world.
He grabbed one of them and slammed him into that wire fence out of your vision down there. Oh boy. I think it's truthful to say there's only one Roughhouse Fargo, and it's a good thing. This is Lance Russell from the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum.
Man, I don't know how that would hold up today, but to me, that was fantastic. Fantastic.
That was great stuff. You know, hard to get by with one of those personalities like that. But in that time period, you know, you bring Roughhouse in anywhere, Birmingham, Atlanta, anywhere, he's going to bring you, you know, 3,000-4,000 additional seats.
And that's what it's all about, drawing money. We're going to go to our second video. This is interesting. This is probably 1975. A heel tag team of Ron Bass and my good old friend Don Bass against a tag team of Bearcat Brown, the big Bearcat you saw in Birmingham, I'm sure, many, many times. Bearcat Brown and one of my favorite guys, the king of Jackson, Tennessee, Big Phil Hickerson, teaming with Bearcat Brown against Ron and Don Bass. It's a 6-minute, 41-second video. 6 minutes, 41-second video. Bearcat Brown and Phil Hickerson against Ron and Don Bass. And here we go. And what we have for us here. Yeah, Billy, I saw that Gunner, I think it's Gunner, I saw that, and by the way, he was in Jonesboro wrestling teaming with Doug Gilbert at Humongous just this past Saturday night, I saw that post. I don't know anything about it. Bearcat Brown was over in Memphis, but I bet he was really over in Birmingham because he was featured better in Birmingham, Pat.
He was, and I've said it before, and Michael said it before. Bearcat Brown and Lynn Rossi did more for integration in Birmingham than Martin Luther King did.
We're about ready to go with a big one-fall 30-minute time limit bout.
Now, this is a very rare film, very rare footage from early Mid-South Coliseum from mid-70s. How amazing is this? Guy Coffey was the ring announcer, as Adam correctly pointed out to me.
The cat held up on the rope, pounded in the midsection. Starts across the ring and still can't make the tag. There it is. He tags Hickerson, but Ron Bass was occupying the referee's attention, and the referee did not see the tag.
I love Phil Hickerson.
Run Hickerson back out again. A tough position for a referee. And Bearcat puts both of the Bass boys out, but from behind, Sam Bass goes after him.
That was pretty weak right there.
I turned my head. I didn't see it.
That was a pretty weak pile driver.
Referee is Eddie Martin's brother, Thomas Martin.
And in this occasion, the referee ran him right back out.
Guys, don't go away. A lot of great stuff. Again, we will save some of it the next week.
And the cat who had his opportunity and tagged Hickerson, but unfortunately the referee...
Pat, I may have to show the Roughhouse Fargo video again next week. I love that.
Oh, it's good.
10-minute mark goes by with 20 minutes to wrestle. A jackknife. Hickerson and Don Bass at it, and here comes Sam in behind. Once again, Sam and that driver pounds the cat down, and Ron Bass covers him. Referee Tommy Marlin counts 1, 2. I think he got him. Nope, he's still checking 1. That's it. That's the third count. And unfortunately,
you're absolutely right, Richard.
the referee, who had to cope with a wild and woolly bout, missed the intervention of Sam Bass. And Phil Hickerson is letting him have the word. Ron and Don Bass, the winners. Referee Tommy Marlin. Accusing Sam Bass. The fact of the matter is, though, the referee did not see it, as he was involved with Phil Hickerson. And Don Bass and Sam signifies to his boys it's time to get out of here. But Hickerson has other ideas. Oh, yeah. Here they go.
Watch this, Pat.
Phil Hickerson being waylaid by all of the Basses at the moment as the referee gets one of them back.
Bearcat is hurt. 2-on-1.
But Sam and Ron still in there pounding on Hickerson. They've busted his head open.
You won't believe. Watch, Pat.
And Hickerson, who is 1 against 3 at the moment. Here comes Big Al Green. Al jumps in there and starts to even things up.
Well, what the hell? Al's playing babyface?
Phil Hickerson at one time held the
Hickerson and Al Green were tag team partners for years.
Yeah, okay.
Al was a long-time heel, and he makes the save. Look at Al as a babyface.
What kind of carrying on is this?
Look how animated he is.
Yeah.
Bearcat Brown, who was put out of it by a pile driver.
Tell me this didn't get over and a reverse decision.
Look at people jumping.
Do what?
Look at people jumping in the
Yeah.
stands.
And the crowd goes wild as referee Tommy Marlin reverses the decision.
First time
Never
Al
seen
ever,
that.
first time Al has ever been cheered in his life.
Never seen that.
To Bearcat Brown and Phil Hickerson. Hickerson, who is in bad shape, was really saved that time by Big Al Green. And as we said a
Look,
moment ago,
Al doesn't give a shit about Bearcat.
Big Al and Hickerson rather, were at one time the tag team champions.
I mean, Bearcat didn't wrestle with hardly any in Memphis, did he?
Oh, no, he did.
I guess before my day.
This is Lance Russell from the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum.
Did you like that, Pat?
I did. I like that a lot.
That was very good, and we are going to get right into a short clip. And this, actually, no, that's not where we're going next. We're going to skip to 1976. This is an interesting match. Jackie Fargo and Rocky Johnson against Jerry Lawler and the Mongolian Stomper. This is 2 minutes, 2 seconds, 2:02 from the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis.
He disappeared from the corner, and there's a tag on Fargo. Once again, the Stomper goes down. Stomper wails him. Lawler telling him, you stand there.
This is a great deal.
Oh.
Once again, a tag on Johnson. The fast footwork, a hard right. The Cocoa butt. The Stomper comes to the corner to tag Lawler. Lawler refuses again and sends Stomper back at it. Tommy Sloan knocked down, and a Stomper, who has never been known to be a gentleman, brings Lawler in. He counts him out himself. Referee Tommy Sloan saying, wait a minute, what happened? What happened? Johnson and Fargo heading to the outside, and the Stomper about ready to take Lawler's head off. Lawler refused his tag 3 times. And Lawler nails the Stomper from behind. Starts to work on him. Lawler pounds him. He's got a
This is the Mongolian Stomper being switched babyface.
The Stomper bleeding. Lawler knocked him all the way across the ring with that right hand. Poole handing Lawler what appeared to.
All right, they kind of skipped the other thing, and that was great video there. What did you think about that? Mongolian Stomper switching babyface, that match with Rocky Johnson, that was good stuff.
That was good stuff. I love watching the early matches of the Stomper because he was incredibly athletic, and I didn't see that until actually I started doing this because he came to Atlanta in the probably early to mid 80s, and he was this guy, just a big guy banging on people and with the arms and all that, and he was really an athletic guy and in Atlanta. But one thing I want to clear up, I said something about Bearcat, and I that's kind of something everybody in Birmingham says. I don't mean in any way to diminish anything Dr. King did in Birmingham, and it's my home, and I appreciate it as much as anybody. So to clear that up. But yeah, I love to watch the young Archie Goldie work.
Very good. He is absolutely exciting, and we'll go to our next video. And this is an early TV5 promo from Jerry Lawler. It's short, it's 46 seconds because it'll be over before it starts almost. So as soon as Adam finds that, 46 seconds. This is Clay Conrad doing the interviewing, and you can tell why they wanted Lance Russell back quickly.
Tell them the truth. You know this is the high point of your day when you get
Oh,
to stand
I'm
next to
sorry.
a big
This
star
is
and
this is
interview.
not what I thought.
This has been your lifelong dream, man, to get into television and interview big stars. And here you are doing it, and you try to convince these people that you hate to do it. We know better than that, Dave. Great night down there Monday night. It's going to be lovely. I can hardly wait for it. Do you realize that? Let me say something to you, Bill Dundee, you little runt, you little half-pint shrimp. You think you're going to stand behind Jimmy Bay and let him fight your battles for you, and then you won't have to face me. Is that what you think? Well, let me tell you something. You got another thing coming, because I'm going to go through Handsome Jimmy just like X-Lac through.
That was fantastic, and that video was from the prime time Tom Snyder special on Channel 5, and you're right about that, on NBC television, Adam, and that was where that video was from. And go ahead, Adam, if you'd put Bo James' comment. He has a comment to Pat. It says, Pat, more than once, the Stomper rode his bicycle from Knoxville to Morristown, Tennessee, wrestled, and rode his bike back home. Can you imagine that?
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, and Frank, we had just said that was from the Tom Snyder show that we watched right there as we're talking Memphis Wrestling, and I'm trying to see what we should show next. And Adam, I'm thinking maybe on this next video, listen to me. I may say mute the audio and do it quickly. You might have to do that. The next video and the last video of the show is an angle on TV5 Wrestling in the early days. I think even before, I'm pretty positive before Lance showed up. So this is early March of 1977. It's 6 minutes, 44 seconds as we watch right now on Talking Memphis Wrestling.
He's a gutless wonder, and when we get in that ring, he knows he's going to lose that belt, because I got your number, Johnson. I want you to realize that. You're low down, you're a backbiter, you're a coward, you're low, man. That's all you are. You're just low bred, and I'm going to stomp you. I'm going to make an example out of you, Johnson.
Here comes Rocky Johnson.
I'm going to start out.
Could you say something about him now that he's here?
Let me tell you something, Kurt.
Rocky Johnson.
You're always running your mouth off. You're out there shooting your mouth off. But you never seen the day that you could beat me, and I'm not scared of you one bit, Lawler.
Wait, gentlemen, wait a minute. We don't.
Let me ask you something.
We don't want any trouble here now, gentlemen.
March or April 1977.
Anytime you want a piece of me in that belt, you can get it. Anytime, because you remember, I'm the one that beat you like a dog for it.
Are you through yet, Motor Mouth? Are you through yet?
You again. Okay. I got back my motor.
We don't want any trouble here.
If he's through, if I can have a word with you just a minute. He's so brave, and he's so tough, and he's whipped me so many times. Let me make a little proposition to you, Johnson. We don't have to wait. I know the match is already booked, but we don't have to wait. If there's a ring right there and it's empty, brother, we can have the match right now. You want to put that belt up.
You say you want to get it on now?
Yeah.
Well, then, hey, get your carcass in here, brother, like you got some sense.
Wait a minute now. We can't just make matches here.
See, here's the thing. We could have the match in an arena where 10,000 or so people could see it, but I want to whip your brains out right here in front of everybody, brother, where 330,000 people can see you get put down, because that's what I'm going to do to you. Get in the ring! Get in the ring!
I said this before, Clay, but if they ever have a look-alike contest for
That's
Muhammad Ali,
Bob Young talking now, Adam.
That's Paul Morton.
Yes.
Lawler, as Rocky Johnson, right above our cameras here, into the ropes. Elbow to the throat of Rocky Johnson.
5 minutes are gone now. 5 minutes.
Referee trying to count him off and calling for a clean break. Out of headlock now.
Boy, Rocky Johnson was athletic.
Rocky Johnson into the referee and knocks him
No
out.
doubt.
Both men now seem to be dazed.
Good point, Adam.
Never.
Rocky Johnson on the mat. And the winner is Jerry Lawler. Let me brief you on what just happened.
Let me say this. Bring Lawler back out here 5 minutes, because there ain't no way in the world that Lawler can beat me. You seen what he used? He had to use his chain. So bring him back out here. Look at my jaw. But let me tell you something. It takes a lot more than that, brother, to beat this cat. So you bring that jive turkey out 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes.
We need to bring back Jive Turkey.
5 more minutes. Let me tell you something, Lawler. Well, let me tell you something. I got something. Let me tell you something, Big Mouth. I got something that still belongs to you, Jack, because I still got that crown. I'll go get the crown right now, and we get back in there for the belt and the crown. If you can whip me, you can have them both. But I know you can't whip me, so I'll go get the crown, and we get back in and get funky. Hey, just give me 5 more minutes. I'll go out to my car, and I'll get the crown. And we'll get it right in there. 5, belt against the crown.
Rocky Johnson, Jerry Lawler, and well, I don't know exactly what's going on here.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just saw a classic example of the biggest sucker in town, didn't you? He said it ain't no way Lawler can beat me. Sure, Johnson, that's why I'm standing here, the new Southern heavyweight champion. Just the way it's always been, brother. It's always been my belt. It's still my belt. Now you know what he's going to do, Clay? He wants to wrestle me again and go get to put up my crown. Well, it's my crown. It's always been my crown. Hey, set him up here, brother. Crown, brother. Come on, set it up. You heard what the man, I ain't gonna call him a man, you heard what the turkey said. Just crown against that belt, right?
I believe that's what he said, yeah.
It ain't what you believe. You heard what the man said, didn't you? Already.
All right, they're gonna go crown against the belt. Rocky Johnson and Jerry Lawler in the ring again, and quite unusual circumstances. Lawler and was supposed to wrestle Gorgeous George Jr.
I watch it. I hate music
Johnson had a
being
special
played
grudge
before
match.
running. I hate it.
Lawler won
Hate
in
it.
5 minutes, and now they're in the ring again. And now it looks
Randy
like a
doesn't like
free-for-all, as we have
No, I hate
Bill
it.
Hickerson, Dennis Condrey. Bill Hickerson, Dennis Condrey in the ring.
Let's get out of it,
Helping
Adam.
Law, holding
Who was
Law
that
over
outside the ring?
against Rocky
Rock Hunter.
Okay.
Manager Rock Hunter, for sure. What a hell of a heel Jerry Lawler was.
You know, I'm watching that, and I love heel Lawler like everybody does. But, but it's surprising to me that he could, being as bad a heel as he could, when he's babyface, all's forgiven. There's no Lawler just turns the crowd on and off.
No doubt about it. We'll do our recap in a minute. Adam, I want to go way back to the picture section. The picture section of this show. The picture right after the second Talking Memphis Wrestling graphic number 5550. And I am going to have Pat Trammell explain this picture.
Well, that is a great afternoon I spent about a year and a half before Lynn Rossi died. He had a health food store and basically sold a lot of vitamins, which I have some, and in Nashville. But well, actually, I think it's in Brentwood, in the Nashville area. And I was riding by there, and I pulled over, and Lynn was in there, and so I spent the afternoon with him, and that was a great afternoon. If I was up there on business, as you can tell, if you can look in my left hand, you see I'm holding a couple of bottles of vitamins and supplements that I keep downstairs in my bookcase with things that mean a lot to me. So that was a great afternoon. That was about 2 years before Lynn died, and I'll tell you what, he still had the grip for sure.
Great picture. We'll go ahead and do fast track these pictures. The picture right after that, I like this one too. This is a great picture of Andre the Giant, a tall son of a gun, with Nick Gulas, Pat.
Andre's pretty young in that, isn't he?
Yes, sir. I would say this is maybe 74-ish.
Yeah, if you look at Nick's pants, you see that's a '74 era pant style.
Next picture. This one good too. This is from the first Jerry Lawler Andre the Giant match in Louisville, Kentucky in 1976. This is a great picture as well, Pat.
Yeah. Did
Next
you
picture.
see him wrestle live, Randy?
One time.
Against Lawler?
No, it was a six-man tag. Bobby Eaton, Coco Ware, and somebody else against Coco, Lawler, and Andre against Bobby, Coco, and somebody else.
Okay.
Next picture. I love this Jackie Fargo, bruised up.
Man, I'd love to have that framed. Send that to me if you can.
I can find it and do that. Yeah.
Oh, shoot that to me. Wouldn't you love to have? I'd love to have that in my office. When you're getting beat up, like everybody gets beat up at work, I can just look up there and see Fargo. That'd be great.
Next picture. Another great picture of Jackie Fargo. Skip the next picture and go to the one after that. This is very young Robert Fuller. Next picture. This is the great Jerry Lawler and Sam Bass, Lawler and Bass. Next picture. How about this one, Pat?
All right. Fargo and Muhammad Ali.
See if you can determine who's in this picture. This next one on Talking Memphis Wrestling.
That would be Lynn Rossi, and I'm afraid to guess.
You want to try or not?
No.
Tex Riley.
Okay.
You remember him?
I vaguely. Now they were a tag team at one point.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I like this next picture, and I want you to identify this next picture, Pat. You should know all these, except maybe one.
You got George Gulas. You got Bobby Eaton. You got the fabulous Jackie Fargo. Is that Roughhouse? Who's that in the middle?
The one on the one that we didn't identify, of course, Bobby Eaton, Jackie Fargo, Roughhouse Fargo, George Gulas, and this is Rocky Brewer.
Rocky Brewer, okay.
He worked for the
okay.
After the split. Next picture. How about Fargo looking?
That is a sweet leisure suit right there.
No doubt about it. Skip over the card and go to the picture after the card. How about Tommy Rich styling Kung Filing?
Very, very young Tommy Rich.
Probably 19 years old, 18 years old.
Tommy didn't start parting his hair in the middle until he went to Atlanta. That's how you can tell.
That's interesting.
He had the bangs.
Next picture. Pat?
Fargo and Tojo. That's two legends right there, man. My God.
Next picture.
That would be the is that Angelo and Lanny?
Yes, Angelo and Lanny Poffo, Leaping Lanny and the head of the Poffo clan, Angelo Poffo. Great picture.
Lanny was a lot more buff then than he was in the WWF, surprisingly. All right, here we got Dusty, pretty young Dusty. And who's that?
Tommy Gilbert.
Tommy Gilbert, okay.
Now, Adam, I am going to guess. I'm going to click on the card and I'll click right off of it. So this was Dusty Rhodes' first appearance at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee on June the 12th, 1977. Read this card, Pat, starting from the first match down at the bottom of the ad all the way. This is Memphis at the Mid-South Coliseum, drawing around 9,000 people at the Mid-South Coliseum on Sunday, June the 12th, 1977.
We've got Jim Garvin versus Igor, who I'm not exactly sure who that is. And then there's a six-man tag. Rocky Johnson, Tommy Gilbert, and King Sylvester Ritter, which would be ultimately the Junkyard Dog.
Yes, sir.
Versus the Exterminators and Dennis Condrey. Now, who were the Exterminators?
I don't even remember.
And I would have loved to have seen this grudge match, $5,000 grudge match, Phil Hickerson and Tommy Rich. I bet that was a hell of a match.
Then came.
Do what?
Then came
Bill Dundee, Bad Leroy Brown, Paul Orndorff, and Mike Stark for the first main event, and then Lawler and Dusty Rhodes.
All right, then we'll go back to Dusty Rhodes and Tommy Gilbert, and the picture after that.
Jackie Fargo and Nick, and who's that up top?
I have no idea. Adam, do you know? As Adam is typing, so we in our private chat, little smarten people up that we can talk to each other, and we sometimes do that. And I thought Adam was typing, and I guess he's
we're speculating that may be one of the governors of Tennessee.
All right, I think
Nick was big with the politicians. He made that a point.
Yeah, and that's smart.
Yeah.
How about this?
Luthez.
Next. And this was put up recently in North Carolina on close to the property that Andre the Giant built and lived the last years of his life. And they put up this on the property. Actor and professional wrestler was born Andre Rossimoff, known for Rose and the Princess Bride in 1987, lived nearby. As Eye of the Watchers, a town in North Carolina, just built a roadside market for Andre the Giant, and that great thing they did there. We wanted to that getaway, and that ends the picture section of this show on Talking Memphis Wrestling. And here we go. We are about 25 minutes early, but we've saved some video. We actually showed 5 videos out of 7, so I'll have to find more video for next week. But Pat, What did we? This is a big question of the day because it take you 2 hours to answer. So abbreviate it some. But what do you think? And what do you think our audience learned today about the 70s? As one last time, I want to get input from the audience. So Adam, if you could put our question of the day up on the screen as Pat recaps this show today and tells us what he learned, and then he can name his favorite decade of Memphis wrestling.
Well, what I learned today, and I've heard the story from all sides of it really by this point in time, but is really how quickly all that happened, how quickly it was, and I'm not being negative in any way, and I don't want anybody to think I am about Nick Goulas or anybody, but just how quickly Jarrett was able uh, to pull that off and seize the town basically. And I obviously he had was well known in Memphis and had been doing business with the Coliseum and everybody else for a long time. But I don't know of any other. And look, I mean, if you remember the the history of the Memphis wrestling territory, Lanny Poffo got here because his dad ran an outlaw promotion in the territory in Kentucky, and basically drew crowds by showing up at the Memphis wrestling crowds, tried to challenge them. So Jarrett said, "Okay, we can do that," and so they ended up having a run on that. But I mean, it really was surprising to me today is how quickly all that turned, and knowing the back.
As as I think we may
Well, Davis responded to my comment, so I guess we weren't off too long. So, Rusty, I hope you heard me say hello.
Rusty's in the house. And Rusty, if you didn't watch this show, you would have loved this show for sure. This was a great history. And
But we got more to come.
It says the NWA got behind Jarrett and didn't look back. Agulis Foley, who was was a NWA member. Nick continued being an NWA member. He just got ousted out of Memphis. It's certainly very interesting. And the watcher says that marker for Andre the Giant sits at North Carolina Highway 73 and Old North Carolina Highway 220. Thanks for that information. As D. Davis from Mayor says, I was cut off. I didn't hear, but thanks for the shout out. Yeah, we just lost our feed, but we got it right back in. So Rusty is at the Tulane baseball game, and
roll away, Rusty.
Now here's what I think, Pat. We won't take the full 17 minutes. The key to Channel 5, I got ahead of myself. The key to Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler winning that deal. First of all, number one, whoever got Jerry Lawler was going to win that war.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have to say Jerry Lawler first. Second of all, Channel 5, and Adam, help me with this if you know. Tell me how much a big deal it was going from Channel 13 to Channel 5, which had a bigger signal, I think. I think it had a bigger signal. So I would say Channel 5 would be second. And third, basically, Fargo and Tojo, Pat was the only ones that didn't come, but at the time for the past year, they just made infrequent appearances. Every full-time guy they had a month before the split came to Jarrett.
Okay.
Every one of them. Every
Okay.
single one of them. So Lawler, TV5, and the fact that the wrestling that we watched is the wrestling we got. But at first it was in a different building, but that didn't last long. And it was on a different TV station, but we got our wrestling. So I think the main key, would you agree with me that it had to be Lawler? Nick would have won. I don't know if Channel 5 would have agreed to take the wrestling show if Lawler wouldn't have been on it. And then, of course, you have to factor in Lance Russell and Dave Brown.
Yeah, and I don't, don't really have an ability to judge that because I wasn't there at the time, didn't know. I mean, Lawler's always been over, but was he the Jerry Lawler that we know today? Probably pretty close, but as it works with the boys, and I mean, and I say the boys respectfully, you know, and I've listened to, as a lot of us have, to a lot of different wrestling podcasts, everything else. Jerry had been handing them their checks for years. Of course, they're going to go with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jarrett had Memphis, that was the biggest payoff in the whole territory, and he wasn't a strong armor like I hear Nick was.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wouldn't cuss out the boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a whole different situation. But let's don't lose fact of the day that Nick Gulas and Roy Welch built Memphis Wrestling. They built, you can give Nick and Roy more credit for Nashville, for Birmingham, for Chattanooga than anybody else. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, no question about that. No question about that. If there's no Nick Gulas and Roy Welch, I'm not sitting here.
And there would be no Jerry Jarrett if it wouldn't have been for Nick Gulas. And if it wouldn't have been for Christine Jarrett, literally and business-wise as well.
I'll tell you, the thing that as you were going through, you were describing the history of all this. Of course, I was a kid, okay, but Nick and Roy Welch ran Nashville, Birmingham, Chattanooga, and Memphis. Jerry Jarrett ran Memphis, Louisville, Jonesboro, Tupelo, Evansville, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't remember spot. I cannot tell you, other than they ran Tuscaloosa a little bit and they ran Huntsville once a month, them ever trying to expand that into the territory. And I know they could have expanded to East Tennessee.
Now, Jarrett tried, I don't think he ever tried to go to Birmingham after the split. He did try to go to Chattanooga one time for sure, but maybe more than that, and it didn't work out at all.
You can't get there from here. It is you can drive to you can drive within 100 miles of Chattanooga from Memphis as quick as you can drive from Memphis to Chattanooga. It's just a hell of a long way.
Right. Yeah. But remember, how far is Chattanooga from Nashville? Because most of the talent lived in Nashville.
It's 2.5.
Right.
Yeah. But see, I think they could have because the Welches had run East Tennessee off and on forever. They could have ran over there. There were periods of time they could have gotten down into Georgia. But anyway, all that's speculation now.
Adam, we talked a lot about television, Channel 5. We heard from you at the start of the program. Would you like to have final comments about this subject? And I would like to ask you, if you're still on. Yes, you are. I'll ask you the same question I asked Pat. What did you learn today, Adam Dunn, on a very interesting, maybe our most interesting show ever, I think. As we've talked about the 70s and my favorite decade. What did you learn today?
What was the match that we watched that it was either the first or second match that we watched? I had not seen it. I had not seen it at all before. I'm trying to remember which match that was.
Roughhouse and Jackie Fargo against Bill Dundee and Chris Cope was the first video.
No, I hadn't seen the one with Al Green.
Al Green making the save, and I don't see. Oh, it was the second video. It was 1975 Bearcat Brown and Phil Hickerson against Ron and Don Bass from 1975 when Al Green made the save.
Yeah, I had never seen that before, and the reaction from the crowd on that. And then watching, it was really good video quality. Watching the video with Clay Conrad and Bob Young, one of the first things I noticed listening to it is how well they had the studio mic'd, how loud the ring was, and you could really hear the crowd. I mean, it was super, super loud as far as that goes. Watching it, I had seen bits and pieces of that, but seeing that long extended portion of that from 77, I don't think I'd seen, and definitely not in that high quality of that one that we grabbed there from Facebook from PJ. So that seeing all of that was really cool. And of course, anytime we can talk the television history of Memphis wrestling, I'm all there. So,
and it's very rare there's any 1977 video out there.
Right.
From the studio, maybe from the Coliseum, but from the studio. So did you learn more about 70s wrestling today than any show you think we've ever done?
Absolutely, yeah, because, for me, my Memphis wrestling story begins in the 90s. So anytime I learn anything from, the early 80s from before is all stuff that I wasn't even around for. So always neat to watch that type of stuff. And yeah, obviously the heyday of seeing all of that. Some people might point to the 80s and Lawler's chase for the gold and his match with Kurt and all of that as being a big Memphis wrestling time as well. But like you said, as far as attendance numbers goes, you're not going to beat what we talked about here tonight.
I think Adam in a roundabout way just called us old, Randy.
I don't think he said it in an evil way. It's the truth.
We all have our little stories of how we got into wrestling. I have vague memories. I remember in '94, and the only reason it caught my eye was I think my mom was watching it or something. In '94, when Eddie Gilbert puts his mom's van on the line against a title with Lawler. And when Lawler loses, Eddie Gilbert goes out in the parking lot with a fire extinguisher and throws it through the window of the van.
Yeah.
That was my dad's van. So that's the only reason that I knew. I saw that and I was like, I was upset as a young kid. I would have been 8 or 9 years old. So I was upset seeing our van get tore up on TV. I had no idea.
That is awesome.
That was my first thing in the wrestling. I'm like, why are they tearing up the van? And then later on after that, I think one of the Fabulous Ones videos was my dad's limo. And then later on, oh gosh, I can't remember his name now, but there was another guy. His bodyguard was that Jimmy Harris guy. What was the long-haired guy? It's just real. Oh shit, I can't remember his name, but it's like '95. Primetime Brian Lee.
Yeah.
There was a deal where he came in a limo, and it was that. But then the first time I remember ever seeing Lawler was my dad had a real big kennel that was for one of our dogs, and it was sitting outside. And Lawler came by the house, and he saw that kennel, and he asked if he could use it. And if you watch, I think this is after you, Randy. If you watch, it's like a '97 USWA. They have, I think it's Tony Myers or somebody is like the Wolverine, and he comes out of that kennel on Memphis TV. So that was weird to see that. So that that for me is why the 90s is what I really remember. And then of course, Randy, when I started going to, I went to USWA a few times, but when I started going to studio wrestling pretty often was of course during Power Pro.
Weather update in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It was stormy last night. It was stormy most of the day today. The last several hours we've been good. There's thunderstorms and thunder and lightning, and we got a mess in Jonesboro right now. Adam, how's the weather in Georgia?
I think we're just a couple hours behind you. We had bad weather last night. A lot of my crews weren't able to get out and do much work today. And I think we're going to kind of have the same thing. I think we have another line coming through this evening, early part of the day tomorrow, and then pushing out and clearing out after that. It looks like from what I was looking at earlier that these storms are kind of holding pretty much a straight track across as they go from west to east. So I think basically whatever you guys are getting, Memphis will get it right after you, and then Pat will get it, and then I'll get it. So.
Yeah.
Next week on this show, as we continue in the 70s, we have an interesting situation from 79 between Tommy Rich and Jimmy Valiant. Waller turning heel in 1979. That's a great interview and a great video. We also show the Christmas show from 1976. That's good as well, and we may show a little bit of Batman in Memphis. Adam West, Batman in Memphis, as we will continue this subject.
What's always bugged me, sometimes you'll read comments from people or whatever. Everyone always talks about when they watch that Adam West video, they always ask if Adam West was drunk, and clearly not. It was just Adam West being Adam West and saying goofy stuff about it's just like watching the Batman show. It's just like, if he uses the left and right turn indicators in his car, it's just being Adam West and being goofy. But it was definitely really cool because he was in town for a car and boat show at the Cook Convention Center, right?
Absolutely. Have you seen that piece, Adam? I mean, Pat?
I have.
Good stuff. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us today. And was the audience not great today?
Yeah. Thank you all for being with us tonight.
For Adam Dunn and Pat Trammell, I'm Randy. We'll be back with you next Tuesday on Talking Memphis Wrestling. Until then, for Lance and Dave, the great host for Memphis Wrestling, best ever. Bye-bye, everybody. See you next week.